about the end of the critical subject.
Hi there, thank you Leighton for inviting me along today. I'm Sarah, some of you know me, lots of familiar faces here. I'm what you would call an early career researcher. Just got my PhD awarded in February, so after some corrections, so that's where I'm situated. Today I'm going to talk to you about the end of the critical subject, and what do I mean by that? Well, if this will move on, hold on a second. So, is it touch? We'll do that. Thank you, Leighton.
Technological breakdown, very, very contemporary.
Let's
have a look.
yeah.
Go down to the bottom there. There you go.
I was trying to, we need to do it like that instead, do we?
Yeah.
Okay. So, based on my research, which was digital literacy education in Welsh primary and secondary schools from the 1960s to the present, I'm going to argue today that primary and secondary school education in Wales is failing to educate students to view and understand digital technologies and the digital environment in a critical way. Like I say, this is all based on the findings of my PhD research. These are some of the contributing factors that I'm going to cite today. Number one, educators lack relevant knowledge, their own concerns, they lack confidence, and there are mindset issues as well. I'm going to go into all of these in more detail. Issues with teacher training provisions. A lack of importance attributed to the digital competence framework, which I will explain in a second what that is. The citizenship strand, which is a part of the DCF, that's been misinterpreted by educators. And also, there is a focus that's been placed on teaching technical, or what I call mechanistic skills, digital skills, that are placed above knowledge-based skills. So I'm firstly going to explain, for those of you who don't know, some of you might know what the DCF is, the Digital Competence Framework. It's a cross-curricular framework. Wales started implementing their new curriculum over a 10-year period from 2016 to 2026, and the DCF was one of the first components to be introduced in 2016. However, did not become statutory until 2021. Being a cross-curricular framework, it's for children between the age of 3 and 16. So teachers, no matter what your subject area, so if you think of a history teacher in a secondary school, a geography teacher, or even a PE teacher, you have to incorporate elements of the DCF within your lesson plan. That's the idea. Those are the 4 strands: citizenship, interacting and collaborating, producing, data and computational thinking. Absolutely amazing. What a brilliant framework. And this is what the Welsh Government described it as. Digital competence is the set of skills, knowledge and attitudes that are needed for confident, creative and critical use of technologies. Great. That's the bit I like there. The critical use of technologies and systems. It's a skill set that enables a person to be a confident digital citizen, to interact and collaborate digitally, to produce work digitally, and to be confident in handling data and computational thinking or problem solving. So, essentially, the DCF is the beating heart of the digital aspect of the new curriculum. In principle, it's multidimensional, aims to offer a very comprehensive set of digital skills. Students can learn digital skills in other subject areas, computer science and digital technology. However, they're optional, they're not mandatory. So the DCF is the vehicle that offers every student between the age of 3 and 16 the opportunity to develop a really comprehensive set of mechanistic and knowledge-based digital skills. Okay, so going back to what my research found. The first point, teachers were concerned. I spoke to 26 in-depth interviews with a variety of teachers that span from LSAs, learning support assistants, to head teachers. I also spoke with digital experts. That's quite a range of in-depth interviews that I conducted. And they were concerned about their own lack of knowledge. They were lacking confidence to teach all of these things that were being sort of laid out there in this digital competence framework. A couple of things that a couple of the participants said. Amanda, who's 23, who is in the digital native sort of bracket there, or the age group. That comes up in my PhD, but I'm not going to talk about that today. Digital literacy, DCF and everything is definitely something I think a lot of teachers are going to struggle with, because there are some things probably on there that we don't know ourselves. And there's a lot of going back and, us having to have a go before teaching them. Then Charlie, who was an ICT teacher, said when it comes down to DCF, it was trying to get teachers through that mindset that you're now a teacher of digital skills. Because there is another cross-curricular framework called the LNF, which is the literacy and numeracy framework. And every teacher has to include that within their lesson plans. Well, now they've got their heads around that, and this was a barrier, trying to get teachers to understand, or not to understand, to accept really, that, okay, now we're going to have to teach digital skills within, and incorporate them within our lesson plans. So that's one sort of issue that came up that was problematic in incorporating these skills, digital skills. Also, there appeared to be a genuine lack of knowledge about the digital environment. So, Ava, for example, when asked how Facebook and Google make money, I mean, I won't go through the whole of it, but there was a lot of confusion in her response, as you can see there. I don't know, it's free for all of us, isn't it? So is Google, it's free for all of us. We get apps on Google. I know you have to pay for those. Really didn't know. And I wouldn't even know. It's just like a whirlwind, isn't it? So this was coming through. There was a lack of knowledge about the digital environment. And of course, logically, if you don't know about it, how can you pass that information on to students? So participants were asked if they educated students about certain aspects of the digital environment. For example, how social media platforms collect, curate and analyse their data. They were also asked if they thought that students in their experience were aware of this type of knowledge. The only participants that categorically stated they taught this were from FE colleges. None of my participants from primary or secondary school said that they categorically taught the students that aspect. Sorry, just had some water there. The FE participants, or the people that worked in FE, they said that the students didn't possess that knowledge until they told them. So that's Tony, who's a learning resources manager from an FE college. Not until we tell them. That's what we cover. We have information skills sessions, and again, that's one of the elements we cover in information skills sessions. It's also an element of their own digital footprint. This year's Safer Internet Day in February. The theme was fake news. Very topical. They created resources to try and get the students to try and identify what's fake, what's not fake, to make them more digitally savvy. But of course, at this point, students are 16 years old. and have potentially been online for many years before they were 16. So let's have a look. The responses to the same questions from the primary and secondary school participants. I don't think I've ever witnessed, even down to when I was having e-learning safety, when I was in school, about information gathering off social media platforms or any sort. So I don't think, and this is a head teacher here, I don't think we've really covered that per se. So this is what kept coming through from the participants that I was interviewing, that there was this sort of, these things were not being focused upon, these things weren't being imparted, this sort of knowledge. Okay, so you kind of think, oh, well, if training would combat that, what sort of training have you had? They were asked if they'd had any training in relation to the DCF, which, as we explained, is the sort of beating heart of that part of the education, of digital education in schools. So there were significant inconsistencies here. Barbara, teacher in an English language primary school, the digital lead. They had a digital lead in the school who was going to sessions, training sessions. The digital lead would then bring all this information back and filter it down to the staff. Great. However, Alison, who's 34 and an LSA, we've just been told, well, there you go, there's the iPads, just get on with it. We haven't really had any instruction of what to do with it, not yet anything. So you can see massive disparities there with the training issues on it. So that was another thing that was identified that could sort of impede this kind of education for students. Interestingly, this came up. The DCF was not considered as important as the literacy and numeracy framework. And the main reason was it had no assessment criteria, whereas the LNF has rigorous assessment criteria. Debbie, who is a computer science teacher, was instrumental actually in helping to develop the DCF. And this is what she said. It was a big hurdle with staff. They felt that if it's not been assessed, well, I'm not going to worry about doing it. Especially some of the schools I was talking to when I was developing it. There was that thinking, I'm not going to put too much effort in because no one's going to test it. So this was another problem that surfaced in my research. Colin, again, an ICT teacher, said pretty much the same thing. There isn't a national test for things, like the DCF. He also goes on to say, you know, I don't want to say it's not as important, because that's probably wrong, yeah? But everyone knows that English and maths is the be-all and end-all. That's the structure of the curriculum. That's the structure of every subject. We won't get carried away. Everyone needs English and maths, probably more than they need digital competence. So these are the, as you can see as I'm going through, these are the sort of issues that are impeding this sort of education of the critical view of digital technologies and the environment. So then there was a misinterpretation of the citizenship strand. So this is what the Welsh Government defined the citizenship strand as being. The focus is on learners developing the skills needed to contribute positively to the digital world around them. And again, I've in bold highlighted that. These skills will help learners to critically evaluate their place within the digital world. So essentially what we've got going on is policy, the new curriculum, the DCF, in principle, is saying all the right things. Yeah, they're in black and white. They've thought about it. They've had some great people advising. The ICT steering group advised the Donaldson report, which came out in 2016, and it's all great stuff that, you know, if it's implemented, would do a great job. So what did teachers think the citizenship strand was? Most common interpretation, safety online, which is not quite the same as being able to critically evaluate the online environment or your relationship as a user with digital technologies. So in many cases, the focus on the elements of this strand was seen as something that would remain a part of the personal and social education. Well, it's a part of the cross-curricular framework, but a lot of the participants thought it would be siloed or annexed out to PSE, or pastoral care, or pastoral care providers in the school, as the following examples show. Okay. Citizenship, that's it, yeah. I was thinking stay safe online. And again, this participant talked about how it will be covered in PSE. The PSE is changing. So you could make the argument, well, they're getting it somewhere, you know? But of course, PSE, at this point in time, when I was doing the research, 2021, PSE lessons once a year. That's when they were getting those lessons. So that's not really going to make that much difference if you're going to have it every year. Again, Amanda said the same, more kind of like PSE type lessons. I guess if they increased the number of PSE lessons, that would help, maybe. But that's not what was happening at the time of my research. So, again, 0.5, nearly there. The focus placed on developing mechanistic digital skills or technical skills. So participants did recognise that an understanding had to be developed among students about the digital environment, about their situation, their position as users, using digital technologies, etc. And what I want to do, first of all, is read this out to you. This came from a digital expert who I interviewed, who was instrumental in developing the new curriculum and the DCF. You don't need to know a formal definition of what an algorithm is, but I want you to understand that algorithms exist and make decisions about your lives. And actually, that kind of algorithmic governance and transparency piece is that you understand Facebook, the feed. It's not what everyone sees. It's curated for you because of your preference. It's targeted to you, and you understand about how things propagate across social media, not because they're true, but because they're popular. And you know that's the thing around this. It shapes public discourse. It can shape elections. It can shape, societal discussion, and it can bring down governance. So the power of technology and algorithms is profound. You need to know this. You need to know about these things students need to know. And obviously, technology is not new. So you know how many times have we seen algorithms that have been systematically biased against, for example, black people. So this is what Oliver, my digital expert, says. And then we go to my participants. Just because someone doesn't know how an algorithm works doesn't necessarily make them not digitally competent. I value spreadsheet skills much more. So this is where you've got the focus on, I mean, that's a real contrast, yeah, which was obviously purposely put there, so you can see that. But for the digital environment, I suppose it all depends on if we're saying we want pupils to thrive, and that's what the digital competence sort of theme is, allowing or, developing people's skills to be able to thrive in an ever-increasingly digital world. My feeling on that would be I don't necessarily look at it. We're literally trying to give pupils the digital skills to be able to work in a digital world. And that's my main priority when I look at it. Which, of course, yeah, we do want students to have digital skills to work. But this participant said that's their priority. So, to conclude, in principle, the DCF has elements included within the 4 strands that could go some way to furnishing students with critical digital literacy skills. However, unless the impeding issues identified or addressed, there is a danger that primary and secondary schools in Wales will continually fail to teach students to view and understand digital technologies and the digital environment in a critical way. Thank you very much.